Assalamualaikum, we are from Group 2 and we would like to present our mini project, which is the relationship between sleeping hours and class attendance among UPSI students. Assalamualaikum, we are from Group 2 and we would like to present our mini project, which is the relationship between sleeping hours and class attendance among UPSI students.
Moving on to the problem statement, university students often experience insufficient sleep due to academic workload, assignment, extracurricular activity, and poor sleep habit. This may affect their class attendance and academic performance. However, it is still unclear whether UPSI students meet the recommended 7 hours of sleep and whether factors such as genders and ethnicity are related to sleeping hours and attendance pattern. Therefore, the study was conducted to investigate this issue using non-parametric statistical method. The objective of this study are first, to determine whether the median sleeping hours of UPSI students significantly differ from the recommended 7 hours per night. Second, to determine the relationship between sleeping hours and students' class attendance. Third, to compare the sleeping hours between male and female students. And lastly, to determine the association between ethnicity and class attendance pattern.
So, sign test is used to test whether the median sleeping hours of UPSI students significantly different from the recommended benchmark of 7 hours sleeping. So, based on the data above, we got the number of positive sign is 10 students, meanwhile the negative sign is 23 students, and the number of tie is 7 students. So, using the Google Colab, we get that our answer is Z equal to 2.437, which is, we can conclude that is greater than upper critical value, which is 1.9. So we reject the H0 hypothesis, and there is enough evidence to say that the median is less than 7 hours of sleeping at alpha 0.05.
Now, we are talking about Spearman's rank correlation test. The aim for Spearman is to test a monotonic relationship between a student's sleeping hours and their class attendance. Here we have 40 respondents that we have from the survey about the sleeping hours and their absence score. So we have rank accordingly to the sleeping hour and also the absence score. We also calculate each one the DI and also the D square I. Finally, we have the summation of the D square I. So, for the hash null, there is no significant relationship between student sleeping hours and class attendance. For the H alternative, there is a significant relationship between student sleeping hours and class attendance. For the alpha, we choose 0.05, the N is 40, and for the R critical is plus minus 0.313. Now, we move on to the calculation of the test statistic. First, we are using the formula of the manual test statistic formula, which is 1 minus in bracket 6 times summation of d square I over n times in bracket n square minus 1. We plug in all the value of the summation d square I and also the value of the n. We get the test statistic in negative 0.8924. To compare with the value, we use Google Colab as the software to find the value for the test statistic. So, after doing the coding, we get the value negative 0.9694. Since the data contains several tight rank, so there exists small difference between the manual result and the software result. Since both absolute value of the test statistic, either manual or the software, the absolute value of the test statistic is bigger than the absolute value of the critical value, which is negative 0.313. So as conclusion, at the 5% significance level, the null hypothesis is rejected. So there are sufficient evidence to conclude that there is a significant relationship between students' sleeping hours and the class attendance.
Next, to compare between the sleeping hours for male and female students, we conducted the Mann-Whitney test. So, the null hypothesis for this test is there is no significant value. between the sleeping hours for male and female students. And for the alternative hypothesis, there is a significant value between the sleeping hours for male and female students. Since the distribution is relatively large, so it can be approximated in a normal distribution. So we use the large sample Z approximation in our calculation. So for the manual calculation, we found the critical value at 0.05 for Z is 1.96, and in our calculation, after we apply the formula, we found that the Z value is 0.29. Next, we use the software calculation. We found out that the Z value in software calculation is 0.299, and it states that the P value for the test statistic is equals to 0.7674, and the significance value is 0.05. Since the test statistic Z value equals to 0.29, smaller than the critical value, which is Z equals to 1.96, and the p-value in the test statistic equals to 0.7674, which is larger than the significance value A equals to 0.05, we can decide we fail to reject null hypothesis. Hence, we can conclude that there is no significant difference between male and female students' sleeping hours, which is the majority students have voted for. The majority students have approximate 6 to 8 hours sleep every night. To determine the association between ethnicity and class attendance pattern, we conducted the chi-square test, which we divided the both variables into 3 groups, which for the ethnicity we have Malay group, Chinese group, and Indian or other ethnic group. And for the class attendance pattern, we have low absence, which is 1 to 5 absence in a week, medium absence, which is 6 to 10 classes missed in a week, and for the high absence, which is larger or equal to 11 class missed in a week. So at 0.05 critical values and degree of freedom equals to 4, the critical value for chi-square is equal to 9.488. So for the manual calculation, from the table, we find the expected frequency for each cell. We calculate the test statistic using the formula, and we found out that the chi-square value for test statistic is equal to 4.080. And then we use software calculation, which we get the same value, and the p-value for this test statistic is equals to 0.3953. So we found out that the chi-square value in the test statistic, which is 4.080, is smaller than the test statistic, smaller than the critical value at 0.05 significance levels and degree of freedom 4, which is 9.488, and the p-value 0.3953 is higher than the significance value A equals to 0.05. Hence, we fail to reject H null. So, we can conclude that there is no significant association between ethnicity and class attendance pattern. Although there is a little difference in the table or in the data that we collected, but statistically speaking, there is no significant difference that can prove there is association between ethnic groups and the class attendance pattern.
Based on our findings, most OPC students do not achieve the recommended 7 hours of sleep per night. In the science test, 33 out of 33 non-type students slept less than recommended duration, indicating that sleep deprivation is common among OPC students. Next, the spearmint correlation shows a strong negative relationship between sleep hours and class attendance. This means that students who sleep fewer hours are more likely to have poor class attendance. The main-value test found a significant difference in sleeping hours between male and female students, with a p-value of 0.767. This suggests that gender does not influence sleep duration, and both groups experience sleeping patterns and academic demands. Finally, the chi-square test showed no significant association between ethnicity and class attendance with a p-value of 0.3953. This indicates that attendance behavior is more likely influenced by individual lifestyle and time management rather than cultural or ethnic background. Overall, our findings suggest that sleep duration is the key factor related to student class attendance, while gender and ethnicity do not have a significant influence in the study.
In short, our study shows that lack of sleep is a real problem that causes OPC students to miss lecture. On the other hand, factors like gender and background does not change their sleep habit or attendance. We show that students urgently need to learn better time management.